Welcome to Fix It Frequency, the podcast where we hammer out all your home repair and DIY dilemmas. I'm your host, Bill, and after 2 decades in the handyman game, I've seen it all. Throughout my career, I've worn many hats: electrician, plumber, carpenter, you name it. I've even worn hat of business owner, running my own successful handyman business for years. Now, I'm here to share my experiences, insight, and tips of the trade with you. Whether you're a seasoned DIY enthusiast or just looking to hire the right person for the job, this is the podcast for you. Join me as we delve into the world of home repairs, renovation, and everything in between. So grab your tool belt, let's get fixin'. Welcome to Fix It Frequency. I'm your host, Bill, and today I have a guest with me. His name is Heath. He comes from the big town of Cameron, just a little short distance away from me. And he is, I would say that he is a professional homeowner. He's definitely very handy and capable of doing a lot of things. And he does do quite a bit of handyman work around his home area. So Heath is very qualified to be here. And Heath, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Bill. I'm glad to be here today.
Glad to have you. So you just built a deck addition onto your house.
I did.
It looked wonderful.
Thank
you.
you.
It was great. Everything looked up to code and looks great. So you did that all by yourself.
You know, I had my son help.
Okay, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
That's actually a big help.
It is. It really is. He's 13. It's one of those things where I'm a This Old House fan, and when they had Norm on This Old House, Norm is my favorite. In fact, I was looking up plans tonight to build a couple Adirondack chairs, and I found in a woodworking article Norm's Adirondack chairs. So the first thing I did was I downloaded it, and I'm going to use that plant out of that magazine to build those chairs for my deck.
Well, there you go.
But no, it's a great experience for my son, trying to explain to him why we would use, well, for one, I overbuilt it.
Of course.
Really
As you
overbuilt
should.
it. Yeah,
As you should.
6x6 posts, everything cut and recessed, 2x12 stringers. The goal is I wanted to overbuild it because in the future, I'd like to put a hot tub or something, and that's going to be 1,300 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's going to need to be strong, and you don't want any bounce. And I felt that if I showed my son, kind of stepped him through step by step of what we're doing, why we're doing it. I mean, as far as mixing concrete to fill the sonotubes, to pulling square using the Pythagorean theorem of 3, 4, 5, or I'm sorry, a squared, b squared equals c squared.
Yep.
And I try to write everything down on a 2x12 that he can look at if he ever wanted to in the future, if he needed a reference. But it is a great learning experience for him. He's got his own drill set, his own screw gun, and he helped me fasten all the deck boards. I let him run a compound miter saw and maybe cut some of the deck boards to length. I showed him what running wild meant. So it was a great learning experience for him. But kind of like you said, maybe a unofficial professional homeowner.
Well, and now you're not a slouch, Heath. And I say that only because you have a regular job. Like you're maybe not a regular job, but you know what I mean. It's like you're not in the construction business necessarily, but you do have a side business, and you're an engineer. So there's that. We try to avoid that topic because I'm not a big fan of engineers.
Well, I'm an engineer tech. I have a degree in engineering technology, but as my professors would always say, and this is going to get some hate, but the engineers work in theoretics, where the engineering techs solve the problems.
I've been a technician my whole life. I'm not an engineer, but I've solved a lot of problems. And yeah, I get where they come from, for the most part, because you can't do it all, and that's just it.
Absolutely.
So I don't hate engineers, I just don't like them
much. Sometimes we don't understand why things are designed the way they are.
No, I understand why. And I still don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's always been fun. Yeah, I do some maintenance for some buildings. I have a bad habit of outdoor activities, so it's always nice to fund those activities with something other than family money. But no, it's one of those deals, and a lot of times, whether it's through the church, or maybe I'm hired to do a job, build some decks, or maybe it's to redo a wall, maybe put some new drywall up. It's little things. It's not.
Sure.
I'm not a general contractor by any means, but I've gotten phone calls to come in and hey, this is a problem. Do you think you can help me put handrails on these stairs, or maybe my husband he can't walk anymore, and we're trying to get this lift system in, but I need another solution for this hurdle. Can you help me?
Well, you're definitely competent and capable of about anything that you want, because I've seen what you can do. What would you say? I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit from a customer's perspective. What are some of the things that maybe your customers or you as a customer, struggle with, when it comes to home repairs? As far as like finding somebody, like what are some hot topics for you?
Man, number one is insurance. If they don't have insurance, don't even let them in the door. I mean, that.
So do you check? Do you look them up? How do you find out if they've got insurance or not?
Show me a copy.
There you go.
Show me a copy. That's whenever you pay your insurance premium. I know whenever I pay my insurance premium for my small business, they give me a copy of my insurance that shows my liability ratings, accident, all of my coverage stuff. And
it's just like car insurance, really. It looks exactly the same. You have injury, you have medical, you have damage. It's pretty much set up. And if it's less than $1 million, they're lying to you, because they don't even make policies under $1 million.
They don't. And if they do, I've never been able to buy one. Yeah, but no, insurance is a big deal. If they're not even professional enough to have insurance, don't even let them in the door. And I don't want to say that to disqualify good people who are trying to help people. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. If you have someone who's trying to help you because they're trying to do the right thing, that's one thing. Or a buddy. But if you're going to pay them to fix something, or maybe do something, make maybe new construction, they better be insured.
So the thing that people don't realize is what happens when something goes wrong. And I've been on jobs where things have gone wrong and were not even my fault. But I'm left holding the candle, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm holding the stick. And I tear this floor out and I look and there's a friggin' sinkhole under the house, and that's why the drywall was cracking,
Mm-hmm.
And of course that's not under my insurance, that's under the homeowner's insurance, but inevitably there's always, gonna be that something. And if you're, as a contractor, if you're not carrying $2 million for just in case stuff, I mean, let's say you fix a pipe and it gets a pinhole leak and you're the last guy that touched it and it ruins somebody's bathroom. That's $20,000.
And you're going to eat it.
You're going to have to eat it if you don't have insurance.
Right.
But no, that's not what happens.
No.
So you just never see the guy again. That's
right.
That's what really happens. And you can try to sue him, but
you can't get blood out of a turnip.
Yeah, they don't got it.
They don't. I mean, you can't. If they don't have it, you're not going to get it. So, and the other part I would say is make sure they have a business license.
I registered with Hamilton, my license, and you have to have what people don't know is to register a business in town, you have to have a federal tax ID.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be recognized by, you have to have your name on file, your social security, all that stuff to get a tax. It's not really that difficult, but there is a chain of custody there, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think it shows integrity and seriousness.
Sure.
Because if you're willing to go through those steps to do it the right way, I'm gonna go out and venture and say there are more people in the world that know what they're doing, that are capable, than those that don't.
Yeah. There's a lot of good businesses out there. They're just, especially in small towns, they're busy.
They're busy.
So right here, right now doesn't always work, and Mr. Right isn't right now.
No, no, that's for sure. And if you have a company that wants to provide you a service, and they're really undercutting everybody, I think that's another red flag.
What I tell my customers is if you take the lowest bid, one of two things is going on. Either you're getting an inferior product and you just don't know it, or you're paying for inexperience. One or the other. If we're both using the same material and they're going to be significantly cheaper than me, they either know something I don't or they're lying. And either way, let's say the guy that was hired could be inexperienced too. He's not bidding it right or whatever. So that's where talk to your neighbors.
Yep.
Talk to your friends. What did they use? We both know people that live in our community we'd never let work on our house.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we also know people that you couldn't get to come to work at your house because they're too busy.
Right.
So on both sides of that, are they competent? Yeah, but one is significantly better than the other.
Right. And something I think that should be a takeaway from this right now is craftsmanship above everything else. And when I say craftsmanship, I mean quality of work. If I can go, if you have, Fred Fix-It come in and he says, hey, I can replace your faucet for $50 in your kitchen that's leaking. Okay, that's fine. Well, if somebody calls me and they say, well, how much are you going to charge me? I'm going to say, well, with materials and labor, it's probably going to be about $150. Well, you're $150. You're $100 higher than Fred Fix-It. Why is that? Well, because I'm not going to go buy contractor grade stuff.
Right.
I'm going to make sure that your feed lines are correct. I'm going to make sure the valves for those feed lines are functioning as they should. And if they don't, guess what?
They're getting done.
They're getting done, and that's part of my bid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to put all new water line in. I'm going to tie it all together. I'm going to make sure your drain's working correctly. And I'm going to make sure everything's vented, because if it's sitting there and it's gurgling and it's bubbling, you may have a venting issue. Well, now that's another thing we need to go look at and investigate. Mm-hmm. But my $150 bid's going to cover all that, where that guy's going to slam in a $50 faucet and he's gone.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens.
Well, and you can't warranty $50 faucets.
No.
Nobody in their right mind puts a warranty on that stuff. So I just did a water heater, and the lady did not realize I was going to put control on it. And when I told her how much I had to drive 45 minutes from Chillicothe to get there. So we're probably talking an hour and 20 minutes from my house one way. Mm-hmm. And she's an old lady. I give her a break, I give her a really good deal. And she's like, that's expensive. And I'm like, man, if you only knew what they charge around here. And that's just to go across the street. Uh-huh. I'm driving an hour and a half. But I didn't let it bother me. I went down there and I put valves on it. We leveled it. We made sure that it was strapped down. We made sure that the water lines were blown out. We got new crimp shark bite stuff, crimp peck stuff on. We went into PVC. We made sure that we were up to code, 18 inches of metal from the hot side, so that it doesn't heat and contract and expand and shatter. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen PVC coming right off of hot water heater. But, it was up to code. It was the way it was supposed to be. And I even hauled off her water heater, which is not something that we discussed. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she was happy after I was done, because she said, well, so-and-so told me it was going to be this much, but they were just going to unplug the old one and plug the new one in and leave. Well, that would have been fine for a couple of months. But if that line had started leaking or because it was bad, I went all new everything. Mm-hmm. And that was included in my bid. And sometimes the communication is the trouble with on my end as a contractor, as a customer. Sometimes we don't know each other's jobs, and so it's hard to explain that to a customer, like, hey, plus you get new lines, new valve, new, ball valve, not a turn valve like a water spigot, a ball valve, all the good stuff that comes with it. When they're getting bids, they don't always know that that's what comes with it.
Well, and they don't do this professionally.
Right.
They do this when something breaks. And when something breaks, there's usually a sense of urgency. And that sense of urgency is going to dictate, one, who they're going to hire, because can this guy get here quickly because I want this fixed now.
How many people they call,
and two,
how many bids they get.
And two, if this guy can get here quickly, it's off my plate and I don't have to worry about nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that's how people get trapped in these overbids, like
Right.
they're way too high. And I've seen, a sink faucet, $150 sink faucet. That's just for the faucet. It's not for the service. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those sink faucets are $150, $200.
Oh yeah.
And when I tell people that, they like take back. They're like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
you want how much?" And I'm like, "Well, hold on a minute. It's a
Yeah.
Delta, bud.
Yeah,
it's not
Delta, Moan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of the American Standard stuff. The higher
I've seen
end.
some Pfister stuff actually do that. I've seen Pfister do warranty, which I normally don't use Pfister stuff, but I've seen them do warranty before, and I've gone on those jobs where I've replaced parts, and they stand behind their product at least.
Yeah.
They weren't on my radar before that, but I wouldn't be too proud to put a Pfister in. That's probably because they got good warranty.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I've never had to replace anything on a Moen or a Delta.
No, I haven't either. I can't think of a time. Well, let me take that back. I had to rebuild a Delta once because it was in a shower. The ball valve for the temperature control for the on off, it was actually leaking when it was turned on, which was kind of odd. Called Delta, and I ordered the new seal, and it took me, I don't know, 3 minutes to put it in, and I was done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and now could I have put in a whole new faucet and replumb that tub? Put a new shower head in, put a new temperature control valve, and put in a new spigot for the tub itself. Absolutely, but that would have cost probably another $200 to $300 more.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's been more expensive.
So yeah, and honestly, your customer base, and that's how you get repeat customers, is if they're paying for experience, they're going to rely on you to know, hey, this is a good piece of equipment, this is fixable, and I can save you money.
Yep.
And again, that's something that maybe they don't have a lot of experience with because they're not handy themselves, which isn't a bad thing.
No.
Some people aren't, but they don't think about that.
Well, and that's just it. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, there's a certain amount of people that, we need lawyers. We need doctors. We need people that do stuff like that. We need engineers. We need, because they can't fix anything. But they don't do this kind of stuff,
No.
And, I come from an automotive background. I was a service tech. I like fixing things. That's my deal. So coming from that kind of place, I get a kick out of solving the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it puts me in a good spot. I'm going to do it anyways. Mm-hmm. When I was working different kind of work, before I got into the contracting world, I did it all myself at home. It wasn't any different. And a lot of times people are like, "Oh, who'd you have do that?" "Oh, I just roofed my house." "What do you mean you just roofed your house?" "Well, I just roofed it. It wasn't a big deal, And I just, now in the age of YouTube, I mean, a guy like me, anything's possible because I can watch some YouTube videos and I can get enough understanding to make me real handy.
Right. And I think I was going to actually bring that up. I think YouTube is also enabling bad contractors to get worse.
Yeah, trying to shortcut.
Yeah, well, they're already in a cave, and YouTube's going to give them a flashlight. So Do we really want to venture further in this rabbit hole, or do we want to get out? And YouTube is probably one of the most powerful learning tools available to man right now. Mm-hmm. But it has to be used correctly, and a lot of that needs context.
Well, and you're right. So coming from a back, like there's things that I know, and I'll watch a YouTube video and I'll go, they forgot a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
They forgot to mention, all right, let's tile setting. I don't do tile.
Yeah.
You know why I don't do tile? Because I know how to do it, and I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks, and I know I'm not good at it either. Mm-hmm. That's another reason. Just because I know how doesn't mean I'm very good at it. But there was something that a friend of mine who is a tile guy, he's talking about this impermeable layer that he puts down, and he says you have to do that. And I was like, you have to? And he's like, yeah, because that floor is gonna move. Mm-hmm. And if it don't have something underneath it to move with it, it's gonna crack.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that makes perfect sense, And I've never done that. I've never done much tile, mm-hmm. but I would have never thought to do that,
right.
And I don't know if it talks about it in instructions or not, but I've never seen it. So knowing that now, I'm like, you got to be careful. There's things that you don't know what you don't know,
mm-hmm.
and you're not familiar with what you've never done, And YouTube's not going to give you the answers. And depending on the channel, they don't want you to know either.
Right.
They just want to make money off the views.
Usually they're selling a product or they're selling views.
Yep.
That's it. When I was in college, I was on a framing crew for 2 years. I was on a framing crew for a year. Then I was fortunate enough I could make it inside, and I started doing house trim and flooring. And you see a lot of people that I think it's a really big fad right now to build your own house. You see a lot of people that are trying to escape that debt of society because they think, I'm not going to get an 8% loan on X amount of money and have to pay the man this kind of money for 30 years. I want to build my own house.
Yep.
And that's incredible. That is, I'm so happy for people that can do that. But there are things you need context for, like let's say you're going to put down a nailing plate on a concrete, mm-hmm. which you're going to start putting your studs on.
Right.
Well, you have to put down a foam seal on that concrete, or else you'll have vapor transfer. And I've seen people do it on YouTube. They'll just slam those sodium boride or those CCA 2x on that concrete. They'll screw them in place, and they'll just start framing up.
Yep, it's treated.
It's treated, but
That's
it's not
code.
But it's not sealed,
right.
and they don't tell you that. And I think YouTube does a good job of showing the tip of the iceberg, but they don't show what's under the water.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And some of it is just experience.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. What you learned on a framing crew, you can't teach people that stuff. You can't just tell them that. You have to do it. You have to experience it. And it's just like that learning curve is so, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I've seen people start projects. I do a lot of DIY repairs. Mm-hmm. It's we started out and then, we don't know what to do with our bathroom,
Yeah.
It's well, I walked into one, it was just a shower, and they're like, we want a shower door, here. And I looked at the wall and I can't put one here.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, why not? Your wall's 4 inches out of plumb.
Yep.
Yep. What are you gonna do?
Hey, I walked into one. I had a couple. They wanted to install. They wanted to put a larger door to their laundry room, which was in a hallway that was part of a bathroom, because they were trying to get everything on the same floor. And they called me and they said, "Hey, we're kind of having a hard time with this. We tried doing this ourselves. Can you take a look at it? Maybe give us a bid." And I looked at it, and there's no jack stud. There's no crown, over the door for load suspension. There's none of that. And I said, "Who? You guys did this work yourselves?" They said, "Yeah." I said, have you ever done any framing before? They said, "No." They said, we watched some videos on YouTube, and we thought we had it figured out, but we didn't. I said, okay. Well, I said, tell you what, it's going to cost X amount of money. I'll fix it, and I'll have it done by this timeline. And they're like, okay, sounds good. Because it's not my job to tear down their work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
They're when they see what you're doing, they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, we were off on that a little bit."
Well, even if they don't, I lose when I see a guy walk. Like I've worked with other contractors, and they start picking the work apart.
Yeah.
It's like, hold on a second. Now, I know that I strive to do the best I can with what I got.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can do. You know, you can't always be at that project where everything's perfect. Sometimes there's not enough money for perfection.
Yep.
Sometimes there's not enough time for perfection. Sometimes perfection don't exist. You kind of got to match what's around you, you know. So I guess I could say I've seen some questionable things. I've even done some questionable things, but that I knew were going to be okay. It was going to be fine. But you know, according to the book, you know, it may not be up to code or up to perfection, but there was only so much money and so much time to do it.
Right.
And when you walk in and start picking somebody else's work apart, you weren't there. You didn't know how much money was involved. You don't know how much time they had to do it. You know, if you get all the time and all the money to do things, it ought to be perfect.
Yep.
You know, that's why when you do things yourself, you know what it's going to cost. You know how much to budget. You know how much it's going to take, and your time is free.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So it should be good, you
Yeah.
know, when you do it on your own. Now, you know, a customer might not go for that extra, you know, $1,000 worth of material that it's going to take to get with that, you know, that look or whatever, when you can turn around and do it at a different, cheaper material.
Absolutely.
And people are like, oh, he used that material. It's like, well, hold on a second. You know, we only had $1,000 to work with.
Right.
You know, so I know anytime I see a contractor picking work apart, it means he's inexperienced. That's what it says to me.
Right.
It's because he's never been there. Everything he's done has been in a vacuum, and he's never had to go through and, like, you know, mud some stuff in because it was wonky. You know, if you've ever used a friggin' 2-foot mud knife
The old
to feather things,
the old feather, the old 2-foot feather.
but I mean, you know, but as long as it looks good, you know, like, and the customer's happy, and it's not gonna, like, catastrophically fail,
Right.
You know, like, you know, I say questionable, but I mean, like, you know, I've used exterior paint inside.
Mm-hmm.
I've used mud to hide indiscretions, you know, like things like that. You know, trim solves a multitude of sin, you know, like.
Oh yeah, short floor cuts. Yeah, you know, and I think something else I'd like to just touch on briefly is, you know, around here I hear people talk all the time. I say, well, you know, if we were going to do this to code, we need to do X, Y, Z, because there is a builder's code out there. You can buy the book and look at it. You know, kind of like for electricity, you got the NEC. If you're going to do commercial, you got the NESC. You know, whatever. There is infrastructure instructions on building, which is the bare minimum.
Right.
And that doesn't really have anything to do with craftsmanship. But I hear people all the time, they say, well, there's no building code out here. You know, where we live, we don't have, our county, you know, we don't mandate building codes. You're right, you don't. But your insurance does.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the $1 million thing, because if I were to go in and install, let's say you had a home and you said you wanted a wood burning fireplace or a wood burning stove.
Yep.
I said, okay, I can slam one in, and let's say I don't use triple wall pipe from stove to the exterior of the house. I don't use a triple wall sleeve that goes through the exterior of the house, and I don't take it up past the roof line for the draw. And let's say I don't put in tile underneath it, which is mandated, and I don't put in heat breaks, which is usually going to be your steel on your wall that has to be offset X amount of inches for heat displacement, so you don't get the wall too hot, so you don't burn a stud. If I don't do those things, and your insurance finds out you put that in there, they'll refuse your claim.
Yep.
I mean,
You got no insurance,
you've got no insurance. You voided it.
even if it's an electrical fire.
Yeah, they will not pay, and that is sad, and it's sad that they can get out of that. But at the same time,
That's what codes are for.
yeah, you took a negotiable risk.
Well, and that's why, you know, it's so important to have the right person. You know, for me, I'm not always the right guy for the job. I'm not scared to say that. And, there's certain jobs and places where I don't belong, and I think I couldn't tell you how many times I've told somebody, like, I don't think that's really for me. And they go, you know what? I appreciate that. I've got this job over here. Would you like to do that? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Windows, yeah. Let me at it. But, some of the other things, it's just like, I'm not comfortable with it. I've never done it before. I'm not interested.
Right.
And the customer, for me, has always seemed to appreciate that. But then they're like, well, do you know anybody that does?
Right.
And what a lot of people in these small towns, I know the plumbers.
Yep.
They know me. I know the drywall guys. I know the trim guys. I know the roofers. I know everybody. I've worked for some of them.
Yep.
And they've helped me on projects before. We've collaborated, and generally, I don't have a bad thing to say about any of them. It's funny that customers think that we're in competition with each other. In a small town, it's really not that way.
Well, we've got plenty of work. I'll be honest, I turned down a landscape job. Mm-hmm. One, I didn't have the equipment to handle it, but right. Two, is going to be almost 20 tons of landscaping rock.
Was that river rock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is going to be I think it's Dakota Brown. River rock is what they're wanting.
Oh.
And I told the guy, I said, I looked at it and I said, is my understanding on the phone is going to be about this big a project. I can handle, 5-6 tons of rock. I can shovel that. But when you're talking 19, 20 tons of rock, plus I got to build a retaining wall, plus I got to get a mini X in here to do this, plus you just refinished all of your grass from the French drain you put in last year. So it's all new. I'm going to tear the crap out of it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not your guy. And I said, I wish I was, but I'm not. And I said, I don't want to lead you down a bad road. And he said, and you know what he said? He said, just like you said, thank you. Thank you very much for telling me that. I really appreciate that. And I said, no problem. All good. He says, by the way, do you happen to know anything about, X, Y, or Z? And I said, well, I happen to know a little bit about that. Sure. He says, well, would you be interested in giving me a bid in that in the future? And I said, sure, why not? Mm-hmm. So he's already texted me a couple times. It's that honesty and transparency we're all in a spot where when we get over our head, like this is not our expertise. Mm-hmm. When you're trying to build your own business, sometimes it's like Kenny Rogers said, you gotta know when to hold them and you gotta know when to fold them.
Yep. You gotta know when to walk away and you gotta know when to run. Biggest problem is communication in this business with customers and contractors. We just don't always see things the same way, and that's something that I'm working on. That's part of the reason for the podcast, is to kind of give customers insight, give them a voice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes customers, I've been in situations where, let's say I'm working for your landlord. You don't get a voice because you don't own the place. If the landlord says paint the walls white, I'm going to paint them white, regardless of what the person living in there, I have to. That's my job.
Yep.
But sometimes, customers don't get their voice because they're not currently in negotiations, or they're not looking, maybe they're not looking right now, and they don't want to waste a guy's time. Ask questions here. This is the place to get questions answered. Leave us a comment, and we'll try to get to them. I just think that customers need a voice. We need a voice too, because sometimes customers don't always understand why we do things a certain way. Just like you were saying, code enforcement. Why do you use this product? Why? I get once I explain something, it usually makes perfect sense. But a lot of times people are like, I don't understand why he charges so much for a faucet. Well, it's because I'll only use a Delta or a Moen, and they're not cheap. You can find a $30 faucet at Walmart, and no, I won't put it in. I offer a guarantee on leaks, so if it's a leak and it's on me, I fix it for free, and I don't want it to be the faucet's fault, because that's a tough conversation. It's like, yeah, it's leaking, it ain't my fault.
Yeah, if there's a perfect world, everything would work the first time.
Yeah, every time.
Every time. But it's not.
No, it sure isn't. Thanks for coming down and having a discussion with me. and hope to have you down here again. What's in the works for you right now?
Oh, so I do some maintenance and construction, a little bit, but I've got a lawn mowing company, and right now I'm actually getting ready to put on a whole bunch of fertilizer on a whole bunch of yards.
How many yards you got right now?
Oh, I'm in the ballpark of 22, 23.
That's pretty busy for weekend work.
It is.
Are you doing it on the weekends, or are you doing it through the week too?
I do it after work during the week.
Oh yeah, after work. Yeah.
My son is my sole employee, and I'll be honest. My son worked for me last year, and he actually made quite a bit of money. Worked hard. He's learning ethic, and he's learning integrity and loyalty. And I'll be honest, I took on a commercial account this year, a pretty big account. And I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna need you, buddy. Are you gonna be there to help me?" And he says, "Yeah." And he kind of hesitated for a second, and I said, "What's wrong?" He says, "I'd like to get a raise." And I said, "All you gotta do is ask." I said, "Done. You got a raise, bud." So he's excited. Gonna keep him motivated. But nope, that's kind of what's in the pipeline right now. Just getting ready for mowing season, and looking forward to a nice green year.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, like I said, if you have any questions for me, I'll try to do the best I can on the next one to get to everybody, and try to highlight those questions. And we appreciate you guys having a listen. Whether it's tightening a screw or remodeling a room, every DIY project is a step towards making your house a home. Thanks for tuning in, Fix It Frequency. Until next time, stay handy.